been almost a year, or actually a little bit over a year, since I learned Mockingbird by Darren Yao. You saw in the intro about how it's going, but I want to elaborate on some things as well as give some tips later in this video on some things that have helped me so far on learning Mockingbird. Now, this is not a troubleshooting or a tutorial. These are just tips and just some kind of other things to note on this Learn With Me. This is the first recap or revisit kind of video I've done for Learn With Me, because this is the only move I've actually continued to practice after a Learn With Me video that I made. My bad. But anyway, first off, I want to say that the first 6 months after I learned Mockingbird, I didn't practice very consistently like I should have, or at least once a day. I did it maybe a few times a week or maybe a few times a month. And that was the first 6 months, so I got really behind on trying to practice Mockingbird. It's kind of like with Waterbend. That's why it took me 2 years to do Waterbend, because I didn't practice enough. Obviously, again, I can't compare it because I didn't practice. So practice is very important. Some other things though I want to note is that my performance is still a lot smoother and slightly faster than it was whenever I first learned it, of course. And I'm definitely still working on this move because it's only been 1 year, which honestly isn't very long since I've done cardistry for almost 4 years. My performance is also a little different than how I first learned it. If you haven't seen the video, be sure to go watch that. But if you just don't remember, I learned this move from Dmitri. He's a Russian cardist, I believe, and I thought it'd be a cool, kind of unique idea to do a Learn With Me from a foreign tutorial, because if someone's not English and they're technically learning from a foreign tutorial, put a twist on a Learn With Me video. But there are several styles of Mockingbird, and whenever Dmitri does it, he has the dominant hand corner grip packet kind of underneath or in level with the pinky and thumb pad corner grip packet. And so whenever he rotates it, the kind of display is a little bit shorter and more horizontally in line instead of more of a diagonal. I've seen other cards, however, have their dominant hand corner grip packet over the middle packet, and I'll put up some pictures or videos as an example, and hopefully you can tell what I mean. Another thing though, I have been told that I do the opener a little bit differently from Darren. I believe you're supposed to break off with your pinky and your thumb pad, but whenever I learned it, I broke off a packet almost in a pincho grip and then put the corner on my thumb. Since it's the setup, I wouldn't really consider it wrong, but that is something differently than I do that I might try and fix. But again, since it's just a setup, I don't really think it matters too much. Personally, I think Mockingbird looks better if you add more rotation, especially with that middle packet. Some people don't rotate that middle packet as much as I do, so that's just my thoughts though. A tip is to experiment with the placement of the middle packet on your thumb pad. About in the middle, kind of, maybe closer to the bottom, is where I like to hold the packet. If you know Prequel by Dan and Dave, it's kind of in that same area. Besides the placement of the corner on your thumb pad, you also want to watch the corner placement on your pinky finger. For me, I like to have it more on kind of the side a little bit, closer to my ring finger. And it's also similar for the dominant hand corner grip packet. You want to just experiment with the placement of the corners on your fingers. Like for the thumb, I kind of like to have it in the middle, and for my middle, I kind of like to have it slightly more on the side. Another tip is to have smaller packets for the rotating packets, because if you have too many cards, the packets might bevel and then start falling off your fingers. Now, personally, I don't have too many problems with the extension, and you can kind of just practice that motion on its own as well, and that might help. Now, it may become more difficult to try and extend the packets and rotate the packets at the same time. So again, be sure to practice that. And don't try to practice too fast. Start slow, of course, because your hands are not used to the movement yet. And if you try and go too fast, you will most likely drop cards. And again, try not to neglect the rotation of the middle packet. And there are also just so many styles of Mockingbird that you can make your own style, or you can try and replicate as someone else's style, and it just looks so cool. It's one of those cool things about cardistry. Here's a few styles of Mockingbird that I really like. Now this is kind of like a different kind of tip or just note, I guess, but I've watched a lot of performances of Mockingbird because, you know, that's like all over the internet because it's a popular, classic, iconic cardistry move, whatever. So I see a lot of performances and I've practiced it a few times. Surely I'm not the only one, but I can imagine the feeling of the cards in my hands without my hands actually holding cards, like pain empathy, but not for pain, but for cardistry. And so when you do the movement, you can kind of imagine the feeling. It's also kind of like if you see a deck of cards, you can imagine how that feels if you can do that. If I see a new deck of bicycles on video, I imagine how it feels. Now, I'm not saying it's entirely accurate, but I can imagine. And imagining how the cards feel in my hand kind of motivates me to want to practice and use them. And so maybe that might help you, or that might just sound incredibly weird because I am a complete weirdo. So take that with a grain of salt. Basically, it's just kind of a psychological trick, I guess, that if you can imagine how the cards feel, you'll kind of realize, hey, this isn't too hard. If I can imagine it without cards, adding cards shouldn't make it too much harder. So I don't know, I'm not entirely sure where I'm going with this. Just watching a very smooth performance of Mockingbird just motivates me, and it's not just Mockingbird too, it's like other moves. So yeah. Also, I believe learning Mockingbird would be helpful if you know Tornado Cut. I learned Tornado Cut like a long time ago whenever I was earlier in my cardistry journey, but that's just another one of those moves that I like never practice, and I haven't rewatched a tutorial for that just because I'm honestly not as interested in mastering that move, and that's okay. That's just one of those things that where you learn a move and you just don't want to practice it. That's what happened with my other Learn With Me videos, but for Mockingbird, I just really want to try and get this move down because, you know, it's such a classic and it's honestly not too hard. I thought it'd be a lot harder, but it isn't. And you know, it's nice and flashy and it looks really good if you can get it super fast. But yeah, that's kind of a 1 year revisit of Mockingbird. Hopefully I can come back and start actually performing Mockingbird in some videos here soon, or go back and start practicing some of the other moves I learned in the Learn With Me, because I have completely failed on several moves, so apologies for that. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video and that you got something from it. And a reminder, I'm having a giveaway at 1,000 subscribers, so please subscribe. I got materia decks or an unopened fantastic whatever deck from Dan and Dave. It's pretty rare, so yeah, please subscribe and please hit the like button, and hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching. Hopefully I'll see you next time.